Qualifications.
Rape, murder, arson, and rape.
You said rape twice.
I like rape.
Charming. Sign right here. Very good. Badge.
Next!
Qualifications?
Arson, armed robbery, mayhem.
Wait a moment. What have you got in your mouth?
Nothing.
Nothing, eh? Lyle.
Gum.
Chewing gum online, eh? I hope you brought enough for everybody.
I didn't know there was going to be so many.
Boy, is he strict.
Gotta get in there close and find out what's happening.
There's our ticket.
Hey, boys! Look what I got here.
Hey, where are the white women at? Man, that was pretty. I like that.
Be ready to attack Rock Ridge at noon tomorrow. Here's your badge.
Badges? We don't need no stinking badges. Oh, no.
Next! Qualifications.
Stampeding cattle
That's not much of a crime.
through the Vatican.
Kinky. Sign here.
Why, Rat, how many times have I told you to wash up after weekly cross burning? See, it's coming off.
And now, for my next impression, Jesse
I
Owens.
have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network, where I am broadcasting 2 miles from the veritable belly of the beast, the locus of evil on the entire left coast, and that's the Bill Mill, the Capitol building in Sacramento, Fornicalia, where late at night you can smell the vapors emitting from that terrible building, brimstone, sulfur. It is, in fact, the locus of evil. You got a belly up to the bar. We've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. Blaine is going to be your bartender tonight. He pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is, in fact, lighted right back here. And that indicates that you can listen and chat at shrmedia.com. But if you want to watch the show, you have three options for the show. You can go to the SHR Media Facebook page. You can go to the SHR Media YouTube channel. And you can go to the SHR Media Group Periscope production. We don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all right here at the saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All that we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle, and please don't forget to tip your waitress. Tonight, in the first hour, we have an SHR Media Network special report where I'm going to go into detail about the Borking of Judge Kavanaugh. And in the second hour, we'll have happy stories and good times. And we'll also talk about any number of political issues as well. We'll talk about, also, that's right, President Trump doing the one thing that he never really said that he was going to do. Let's see. What was the most transparent administration in the entire history of history with regard to the United States? Well, that's right. It's Barack Hussein Obama, insisting that, hey, transparency is the mode that we adhere to around here. Except that, no, not so much. It really wasn't very transparent at all. And people seem to have a short memory when it comes to Barack Hussein Obama hating the media as well. Media hating. That just can't be. I'm sorry. That just can't be, can it? Or maybe it is. Well, let's see. I've got to look over here and pull up. There we go. Now I can see who's in chat, and I can see who's where. Anyway, welcome to Michael John Pasqua over in the SHR Media side of chat. Mary Brockman, your chair is, of course, available for you 24/7 whenever the heck you feel like coming into the saloon. Dave Milner, welcome. Let's talk to Dave in just a moment. Whiskey Dale, again. Whiskey Dale, thanks for the Bobcat for Clyde. Unfortunately, Clyde Cam is not working right now. We're trying to upgrade some of the cameras in the studio here. And I want to say condolences to Dave Milner, who lost his mom recently. And folks, if you don't know Dave, you might want to send him a little message or two. Dave was talking about that on Facebook. I lost my mom back in 2002. She was 80 years old. She passed away due to COPD. None of the kids, myself included, and I lived in Sacramento at the time, none of the kids knew that she had COPD, and also none of the kids knew that she was on an inhaler about 24/7. And that's the way the greatest generation rolled. I lost my dad in 2009. He was 88 years old. How fabulous is that? If I make it to next year, A, that's a blessing, and B, I'll be shocked. And let's see, who do we have over in the YouTube side? I'm going to have to refresh this and see if I'm rolling live just to check, okay? Just humor me for a little bit because we think we've gotten this situation taken care of. But if you can hear me, just let me know in chat that you can hear me and see me, because we did some tweaking to the show over the weekend. Okay, all right. You caught me. All right, not we. That was, got to be honest, that was Sackhead Sean, who went in and found out that apparently these various cameras and the views that we have, because the entire system has been updated. There's a big computer down here with an AMD 8-core processor and a big video card and 2 big Spectre monitors that are right in front of me, and my laptop and the board and another Microsoft Surface over here will be appearing very shortly. So anyway, if you can hear... Oh, and the other thing I need to find out. When I go to a break at the top and bottom of the hour, the first break will be at the bottom of the hour. When I go to the commercial break and we hear some promos, could you let me know if you actually hear the promos this time? And again, that will confirm the work, the slavish work that Sackhead Sean has been doing this past weekend. I need to reaffirm to everybody that Sackhead Sean is not gone. Sackhead Sean is around here a ton of times. He was on the Chat Show last week on Wednesday. So whenever he has time, he likes to come in, but there's no predicting his schedule because his schedule is kind of wacky. It's not nearly as predictable as it used to be when he used to be in every Wednesday for the Sackheads radio show with the Triumvirate, myself and Sean and Sackheads Clint. Miss those days, but I tell you what, I appreciate when Sean is in here because it just, it's great to see him. It's great to talk to him. Mike asks, BZ, are you on Spreely? Mike, you sent me a message. I think it was on Messenger. And I said, no, not yet. But at least I bookmarked it. Okay. So anyway, we've got a great show for everyone here tonight. And even in the last, when did I hear this? At 5 o'clock Pacific time, and also buttressed by 6 o'clock Pacific time, there's an even newer update on Judge Kavanaugh and what may or may not be going on Thursday in terms of the hearing, and what may or may not be going in terms of next Monday, the 24th. But you know what? I tell you what, we'll get to that because right now it's time for...
This is an SHR Media Network special report.
The special report tonight is about the borking of Judge Kavanaugh. And that may resonate with some folks. It may not resonate with some folks. I was around long enough to know what that means. To bork is essentially now a verb, but there is much, I can guarantee you, there is much that you have not heard about what's happening in the background. And I'm going to start with a little bit of history, and then we're going to go into a lot more detail, a lot more context, a lot more textual layers to this whole thing, and then I'm going to wrap it up at the end. I may or may not be going over into the second hour. I'm just got all my audio cuts lined up. I've got all my information lined up. I suspect it's going to take the bulk of the hour, but fear not at all. There will be more than enough content for tonight. So when I talk about the borking of Judge Kavanaugh, I have to tell you that with everything that's been going on, that's it. I'm done. I'm done with the hypocrisy, and I'm done with the identity politics. It's time to tell the truth and dig into the real issues at point. Now, the truth is there's a massive leftist bent at work here, and I will buttress that statement with much, much evidence. So Judge Kavanaugh right now is in the process of being borked, though it lacks the process of a sort of a high-tech lynching, as quoted by now Justice Clarence Thomas from 1991. But sort of absent the issue of melanin count, the issues are this. What is happening with Judge Kavanaugh is clearly not without purpose. The primary reason, and I suspect most proper-thinking people, I could say right-thinking people, but some people on the left, I would submit, are cognizant of this crap as well, too. The primary reason is an all-out and a continuing assault via Kavanaugh on anything having to do with President Donald Trump. If you recall, not terribly long ago, any number of Democrats quite stridently said that they would vote against anyone nominated for SCOTUS by President Trump. They didn't care who it was. It could have been Gandhi. It could have been Serena Williams. It didn't matter. So what is borked, and when or how is it used as a verb? So I said we're going to talk about a little bit of history here, and we will start with that. Let's go back on the Wayback Machine to October 23rd, 1987, when President Reagan's nominee, Judge Robert Bork, was voted down in the Senate by a 58 against 42 in favor vote. Now, he was going to replace retiring Associate Justice Lewis Powell. How many people remember Associate Justice Lewis Powell? Raise your hands. Okay, this is me putting my hand down. That's how significant he was. Now, this was a conservative judge, Bork, nominated by a conservative president. Bork's video rental, they went into Bork's video rental history, if you remember, and they leaked that to the press. Bork, and here's the terrible part, Bork had originalist views. He was an antitrust scholar, and his marriage to a Roman Catholic ensured, Democrats believed, they were sure that he was certainly going to reverse Roe v. Wade. That's how far back this crap goes. This is 1987. Bork was reviled for briefly being Nixon's acting attorney general as well, if you recall. Just that act in and of itself was enough to make sure that by way of the Democrats, you could not elect this guy at all. He was absolutely unsustainable. Well, what happened with Robert Bork? And what happened after that?
Robert Bork. He first came to fame in 1973 when he was the U.S. Solicitor General. Bork carried out President Nixon's so-called Saturday Night Massacre, firing the Watergate special prosecutor. Payback came when President Reagan nominated Bork to the Supreme Court. The democratically controlled Senate rejected the arch-conservative after one of the most contentious confirmation.
Remember that. Note that. The democratically controlled Senate.
Hearings ever. This is part of Senator Ted Kennedy's opening statement.
Robert Bork's America is a land in which women would be forced into back alley abortions.
Bork denied that and...
Do you see a theme here? Even back then, the lion of the Senate.
While he didn't make the court, he did make the dictionary. Bork means to attack a nominee for political reasons. Robert Bork died today of heart disease. He was 85.
And that was back in 2012 that occurred, when Bork passed away. The funny thing about that is that it was such a stabbing, such a relentless stabbing of Bork, that it did become a verb. So let's come a little bit closer to today. Let's move forward to 1991. Now, in the last week leading up to Judge Clarence Thomas's confirmation hearing in 1991 for the Supreme Court, there was a leftist activist, does this sound familiar, female named Anita Hill, who accused Clarence Thomas of sexual harassment. He said, she said. Again, is this starting to sound a little familiar? Now, add melanin count, and the situation is kind of similar to that of Ford and Kavanaugh. President Bush had nominated Thomas to replace Thurgood Marshall, who had announced his retirement. And then we had this by Clarence Thomas in front of the Senate. This was very, very uncomfortable, and he's responding to Anita Hill.
Committee will please come to order.
This is Joe Biden.
Judge, it's a tough day and tough night for you, I know. Let me ask, do you have anything you'd like to
And Biden is happy as hell about it.
say before we begin? I understand that your preference is, which is totally and completely understandable, that we go 1 hour tonight, 30 minutes on each side. Am I correct in that?
That's right.
Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Senator, I would like to start.
If you were watching this video, you can tell Clarence Thomas is not very happy at all, and you'll hear it in his voice.
Start by saying unequivocally, uncategorically, that I deny each and every single allegation against me today that suggested in any way that I had conversations of a sexual nature or about pornographic material with Anita Hill, that I ever attempted to date her, that I ever had any personal sexual interest in her, or that I in any way ever harassed her. A second, and I think more important point, I think that this today is a travesty. I think that it is disgusting. I think that this hearing should never occur in America. This is a case in which this sleaze, this dirt, was searched for by staffers of members of this committee, was then leaked to the media, and this committee and this body validated it and displayed it at prime time over our entire nation. How would any member on this committee, any person in this room, or any person in this country would like sleaze said about him or her in this fashion, or this dirt dredged up, and this gossip and these lies displayed in this manner? How would any person like it? The Supreme Court is not worth it. No job is worth it. I'm not here for that. I'm here for my name, my family, my life, and my integrity. I think something is dreadfully wrong with this country when any person in this free country would be subjected to this. This is not a closed room. There was an FBI investigation. This is not an opportunity to talk about difficult matters privately or in a closed environment. This is a circus. It's a national disgrace. And from my standpoint, as a black American, as far as I'm concerned, it is a high-tech lynching for uppity blacks who in any way deign to think for themselves, to do for themselves, to have different ideas. And it is a message that unless you kowtow to an old order,
listen to this,
is what will happen to you. You will be lynched, destroyed, caricatured by a committee of the U.S. Senate rather than hung from a tree.
In 1991, Clarence Thomas was, in fact, confirmed to the Supreme Court by a Senate vote of 52 for and 48 against, just a reversal of the Bork, 58 to 42. Now, it's interesting to note that a particular individual named Amanda Prestigiacomo wrote this article back in 2016 following, you people may have even watched the HBO film about Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill. I purposely did not, because I watched all of that. I knew what was going on, and I knew the purpose for the Senate essentially attempting, as he indicated, as Judge Thomas indicated at the time, that it was a high-tech lynching. She wrote back in 2016, at the time of the release of that HBO movie, 6 pieces of evidence Anita Hill was lying. Number 1, a witness said she was told details about the supposed sexual harassment while the two were living in Washington. Except the witness was not living in Washington when Hill worked for Thomas. The witness supposedly corroborating Hill's allegations had moved out of Washington before Hill had even begun working for Thomas. How could she have possibly been told about the harassment before it happened? Number 2, Hill followed Thomas, a man she accused of sexual harassment, from job to job to job. Hill claimed that she feared losing her government job if she did not follow Thomas from job to job, as Brookings Institute senior fellow Stuart Taylor Jr. points out. Hill was an employee of the federal government known for its incredible job security. We know that today. Number 3, Hill made numerous phone calls to her supposed sexual harasser after she stopped working for him. Phone logs document numerous calls from Hill to Thomas after she stopped working for him, notes Thomas Sowell. It seems rather odd that a woman would consistently call a man who was accused of sexually harassing her. Imagine that. Further, Hill also denied that she made these calls, which doesn't really boost her credibility either, because the calls were in fact documented. Number 4, Hill initially asked to be kept anonymous when her accusations were presented to Thomas. But if her accusations were true, then Thomas would know that the accusations were launched by Hill. So why ask for anonymity in the first place? Thomas Sowell elaborates, the really fatal fact about Anita Hill's accusations was that they were first made to the Senate Judiciary Committee in confidence, and she asked that her name not be mentioned when the accusations were presented to Judge Thomas by those trying to pressure him to withdraw his nomination to the Supreme Court. Now, think about it, Thomas Sowell writes. The accusations referred to things that were supposed to have happened when only two people were present, he added. If the accusations were true, Clarence Thomas would automatically know who originated them. Anita Hill's request for anonymity made sense only if the charges were false. Number 5, Anita Hill lied 5 times about being told something from a Democrat staffer, which she later admitted to under oath. The Federalist highlights that Hill admitted under oath that although she previously denied being told something by a Democrat staffer, she actually was. This, of course, reeks of a political motive for the allegations and, again, a lack of credibility of the accuser. Now, number 6, a dozen females who worked with Thomas and Hill gave favorable testimony about Thomas and refuted the claims by Anita Hill of Thomas's inappropriate behavior. Folks, is this starting to sound just like a replay in 2018 of 1991 and to a degree of 1987? Now, as noted by the Wall Street Journal, a dozen women came out in support of Thomas, giving glowing testimony of his behavior, lending contradiction to Hill's accusations. So let's put on our thinking caps for just a second, because we've seen this all played out these days recently in the Me Too days. 2 things we know about sexual assault accusations in this temperate climate. Number 1, there will be a flood of persons subsequently coming forward to accuse Judge Kavanaugh, or no one else will come forward. Now, how or why do we know that? Anybody remember Harvey Weinstein? And when one person broke that wall, the floodgates were opened. Do you see any floodgates occurring right now with regard to Judge Kavanaugh? Oh, there is so much more that you guys don't know and that you haven't heard. Now, in the case of Thomas, 2 other women were mentioned but didn't testify. As of this writing, there is one accuser of Judge Kavanaugh of this report, and there are 65 women who support him by letter. So let's go into this September 14th article by a woman named Virginia Hume, who wrote this in the Weekly Standard. And it was published, and the title is About That Letter from Women in Support of Brett Kavanaugh. And this is by Virginia Hume. On Thursday afternoon, she starts this way. I signed it, and here's how it went down. And this is going to put some falsehoods to rest. On Thursday morning, Dianne Feinstein released a cryptic statement saying that she'd submitted to federal investigators a letter about Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. Although the FBI quickly announced it would not pursue an investigation, speculation surfaced that the claims related to an incident of sexual misconduct dating to Kavanaugh's high school years. Number 1, on its face, that's just damn ridiculous. On Friday, a group of women who knew Brett in high school sent a letter in support of him to Senators Grassley and Feinstein. I am one of those 65 women. That's Virginia Hume. Having seen some of the reaction to the letter, I'd like to clear up a few things. The letter was conceived and drafted by friends of Brett's, and it was drafted after allegations came out on Thursday. I learned about the letter from a friend and a fellow signatory. Others learned about it the same way. Those surprised at the speed with which it came together should see it as another testament to Brett's excellent reputation. To those who responded to my tweet saying I knew Brett in high school by asking if I had any gender reassignment surgery, I went to an all-girls high school in Bethesda. He went to an all-boys school in Bethesda. We were permitted upon occasion to speak to people of the opposite sex. To those hearing the thwap, thwap, thwap of black helicopters because my father is a journalist or because I worked in politics, In a group of 65 graduates of D.C. area schools, it would be odd not to find someone related to or working as a journalist or a politician. It's entirely unremarkable. This is a company town. Now, that said, it might explain why people happen to see my tweets on the subject. And finally, to the person who said I'm too young to know Brett Kavanaugh, truly I thank you from the bottom of my heart. So no. Remember the allegations about this letter? The letter of support was not waiting in the wings for weeks, as leftists allege, to be magically exhumed if or when necessary, due to circumstances. And other women came out in support as well. So not just in a letter, but also supporting verbally.
Now exclusively are 2 of the 65 women who signed a letter vouching for Judge Kavanaugh's good character. Maura Fitzgerald.
This is Martha McCallum's show.
A good friend, dated Kavanaugh for a while in high school. And Maura Kane, who has known him since high school, they dated in college and remain friends. Welcome to both of you. Good to have you here tonight. Maura Fitzgerald, let me start with you. When you heard this account, when you read what this accuser is saying, what went through your mind? What was your reaction?
I was absolutely shocked. I just couldn't believe it. It's just so polar opposite of the Brett Kavanaugh that I've known for over 35 years. I was confused, surprised, shocked, and I still can't believe it.
Maura Kane, what was your reaction?
The very same. I couldn't believe that these allegations had come out when I had been at the hearings for a couple of days, and we just watched woman after woman come forward praising Brett and his respect for women and his professionalism and his kindness towards them. And then this at the last minute came out. I was equally shocked.
Maura Fitzgerald, all of this is, this hearing that's going to happen a week from Monday. This accuser will speak. He will speak. We've all seen this before. It reminds, I think, many of us of the Anita Hill situation. So there's going to be a lot of delicate questions. And one of the questions is going to go to whether or not he was someone who drank heavily in high school and could have potentially blacked out this entire experience. Maura Fitzgerald, is that a possibility?
No, and all of the times, all the years that I've known Brett, even if we had a beer, he was always in complete control. And he was actually one of the guys that if we were at a social gathering, he'd be the guy to look out for other people. He was always in control.
So, Maura Kane, they've already dredged up, things that were written in high school yearbooks. He talks about something about kegs and some liquor reference. A lot of people write those kind of things in high school yearbooks. But tell me your recollection. Did you ever see him, out of control, drunk, in a situation where he?
Well, at least they didn't go to the video store, I guess.
Might not have remembered what he was doing.
No, not at all. We did drink beer in high school. Back then, the drinking age in Washington was 18.
No. You never saw him drink a beer in high school ever?
No, we did. Yeah, we
did.
You
did?
No, I'm
I thought you
we
said
did
you
drink beer.
Okay, just to be clear.
No, we drank beer. It was legal, so we did drink beer. But I never saw him out.
Did you, Judge, drink beer or ever think about drinking a beer, or did you ever have beer on your mind?
Out of control, drunk. He always retained his composure. He was a responsible guy. He was someone who did have a beer, but he was never out of control. He never became someone different after drinking.
Maura Fitzgerald, did you know this woman? You both went to the same high school. He went to sort of the brother high school to that, Georgetown Prep.
Now we're getting a little bit more focused.
He went to a different high school. Do you know this woman, Christine Blasey Ford?
I do not, and I actually don't even recognize the name.
What about you, Maura Kane? Any recollection at all of ever seeing her at any party?
Yes, I did know who she was. I had seen her at parties. She went to a different school, but I knew who she was, but I did not know her well. We were not friends. I just knew who she was.
All right, and you both dated him. I'm sure he dated several people. Most people do through high school and college.
Correct.
So Maura Fitzgerald, was he ever physically aggressive to you? What was he like as a boyfriend?
No, he was nothing but kind and polite. And
by the way, welcome to Simone in chat, and welcome to one viewer stepping in.
Respectful. I dated him. I've known him since high school. I dated him briefly in college, and we've remained close friends ever since. I cherish his friendship, He has just been such a stand-up guy, full of integrity. I admire him. He never exhibited to me or anyone else that I know, not with anything, treated no one with disrespect.
Do you know, do either of you know the other friend who was supposedly with him that night, Mr. Judge?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you both know him. Do you have any recollection of this party?
No.
No.
I don't know anything about the party.
A party at
either.
a pool house, somewhere near the club where everybody used to hang out. No recollection of that night?
No. I'd never heard of anything about that party until this week.
Folks, can you remember anything that happened to you in 1982, unless it was the death of a parent or something terrible or traumatic like that? We're talking about 1982, 36 damn years ago.
Okay. In terms of the letter that you signed, there's a lot of buzz today about the fact that so far you're the only two who want to step forward and stand by the letter that you wrote.
Remember this, because if you don't recall that those two people coming on the show was leftist fodder, indicating that of the 65 people, the women that signed the letter, only 2 believe in Kavanaugh. Are you fucking kidding me? Yes, this is how this was taken by the left.
What can you say about that? Let me start with you, Maura Fitzgerald.
That is actually not true. I've seen a lot of that in the media, but
Yep.
Of all the girls that I've been in touch with about the letter who have signed the letter, they stand by it. They have been just trying to avoid all the calls from the media, but they do stand by the letter.
Maura Kane?
Yeah, the very same. Everyone stands by the letter. They're just not going out into the media and being so, we've put it out there and everyone's supporting Brett, but following that, no one is retracting their support. They're just avoiding the media frenzy.
And why wouldn't they want to avoid the media frenzy? Considering what the media does to people today, particularly if you're linked in any fashion whatsoever to Donald John Trump. This is, again, why this is occurring. Now, Bork was just the beginning of partisanship. Or, excuse me, it wasn't the beginning of partisanship, but I mean, it's when it really, really started to explode in SCOTUS hearings. And Thomas followed up, and now we have Judge Brett Kavanaugh. It all started with Senator Dianne Feinstein when she was made aware of the allegations by letter by a then anonymous accuser. Remember, that's how it all started. She was just anonymous. So, leftist clinical psychology professor, her name is Christine Blasey Ford, in July. That letter was known in July. So what happened? Dianne Feinstein sat on that letter, and Judge Jeanine Pirro explains how and why that happened. From, let's see, I think this was last Saturday.
Are you stupid? Why would you let it go? Let me tell you why you'd let it go, Dianne. Because even you didn't believe it. What other reason could there be?
Oh, and there's another reason, too. We'll get into that shortly.
Now, tonight is more than an open. It's who I am. It's what I know and what I did for over 3 decades as a prosecutor, Superior Court judge, as well as elected district attorney. The way it works is you are innocent until proven guilty.
Thank you.
Clear, unambiguous words etched in stone. Why would anyone ignore this truth? Especially the ranking Democrat on Senate Judiciary, Senator Dianne Feinstein, is stunning. But you shouldn't be surprised.
You shouldn't be surprised because after Pirro finishes, later on, I tie this all up for you.
The left is committed to the removal of a duly elected president, the destruction of our system of capitalism, and now an all-out assault on our system of justice. To them,
exactly.
You are guilty. Guilty until proven innocent. But no one in all the years I spent in courtrooms has ever been able to prove a negative. So forget the time-honored notions like due process, probable cause, beyond a reasonable doubt, or a jury of your peers. Today, unsupported, uncorroborated, untested words, not facts, are sufficient to convict, not just in the court of public opinion, but in the esteemed, hallowed halls of the United States Senate.
By the way, wasn't it Ruth Bader Ginsburg who said, basically, I think, that Abraham Lincoln grabbed her ass back in 1862?
Forget the right to counsel, the ability to defend yourself, the right to confront your accuser, or even cross-examine your accuser. Truth in this scheme is nothing more than collateral damage if a Republican is on the receiving end of an anonymous allegation. So, Diane, let me see if I get this. Another Democrat, a congresswoman from California, no less, forwards a July letter to you containing a completely unsubstantiated claim that Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh, while in high school, tried to force himself on another high school student almost 40 years ago. Kavanaugh, for anyone who even cares, has categorically and unequivocally denied the allegation. So, why are we just hearing about this now? Diane, when you get the letter, what do you do to make sure it's real? That the person is even real? Given the left's penchant to buy fake dossiers, make up facts, and collude with the media to sabotage even the President of the United States, forgive me if I think it's all hogwash. Okay, you say, quote, the individual strongly requested confidentiality, declined to come forward or press the matter further, and I have honored that decision. Diane, you honored that decision? Did you even speak to this alleged person? Did you meet with her, talk with her, interview her? Did you ask her to meet with others? Did you ask why she said nothing for almost 40 years? And Diane, why would you wait to even send it to the FBI? Is it because nothing in you and your pack of demon rats? That's what I said, demon rats.
Oh, no, I like Demorats. I've liked Demorats for years. By the way, this just popped into my brain housing group while we're waiting for Judge Janine Pirro to finish here. I just thought, I've made a decision. I've already decided that whoever wins the Demorat nomination in 2020, I've already decided they sexually assaulted me 40 years ago.
AKA Democrats' bag of tricks was working against Kavanaugh? Nothing was working that you were doing, beginning with Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, and every unhinged lunatic you could find.
Mr. Chairman.
Brett Kavanaugh.
Mr. Chairman.
To serve as Associate Justice.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to be recognized for a question before we proceed.
Regular order. You're out of order. I'll proceed.
We cannot possibly move forward, Mr.
Now, this is Kamala Harris. This was all kabuki theater. The first day of the Kavanaugh hearings, because guess what? Cory Booker and Kamala Harris are both going to run for president in 2020, right?
Mr. Chairman,
I extend a very warm welcome
we have not
to
been
Judge
given
Kavanaugh,
an opportunity to have a meaningful
his wife,
hearing
Ashley,
on this nominee.
Their two daughters.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with my colleague Senator Harris. Mr. Chairman, we received 42,000 documents that we haven't been able to review.
Okay, stop. Stop with that bullshit right there, okay? Because they received more documents at that point, at the first day of the hearing, than the total number of documents submitted and demanded for the previous 5 Supreme Court nominees. And yet they wanted more documents. This is standard leftist Demorat bullshit.
Last night, and we believe this hearing should be postponed.
This is American people.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn.
Directly from Judge Kavanaugh later this afternoon.
This didn't work. So what doesn't kill me just makes me a victim.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn.
And Diane, you've been sitting on this letter for almost 2 months.
Yep.
You let Brett Kavanaugh go through days of Senate hearings, meetings with senators, answer then an additional 263 pages of 1,300 follow-up written questions. And now you want to character assassinate this man who's undergone 6 FBI full-field investigations where no such allegation resembling this anonymous nonsense has ever surfaced? Diane, as the ranking member of the committee interviewing Kavanaugh, how could you possibly let a moment pass without addressing the issue when Kavanaugh was right in front of you and would have had the opportunity to respond? What were you thinking? Are you stupid?
Oh, do you want me to answer that?
Why would you let it go? Let me tell you why you'd let it go, Diane. Because even you didn't believe it. What other reason could there be? Now, I know about women who've been sexually assaulted and the kind of pain they go through. It is different from other crimes. It lingers and rears its head throughout their lives. I have prosecuted on their behalf for decades. And one of the ways that we establish their credibility is with how recent their complaint is. A recent outcry is enormously powerful. An anonymous one almost 40 years later? Not so much, Diane. But silence? I guess I shouldn't be surprised. You bozos in Congress actually had a fund of taxpayers' money, our money, to pay congressional staffers who were victims of sexual misconduct by your coworkers. It's a fund that even you as a woman, a powerful senator, kept quiet about.
Do you remember that? The Senate and some people in the House, the Senate and the House, your cash was being spent to support sexual harassers and worse, and everyone in the House and the Senate, men and women, they knew it.
Whose side are you on? Does it depend on politics? Does it depend on the politics of the accused? Your audacity to destroy and try to destroy a man with impeccable credentials, harm his family, and shift the burden of proof to the accused by alleging one of the most heinous allegations imaginable shows your complete disregard for truth, justice, and the American way.
And that's absolutely correct. The allegations, now, perhaps you're wondering what the allegations were. And this is from an article by Emma Brown that originally appeared in the Washington Post. This is where the allegations first appeared. Speaking publicly for the first time, Ford said that one summer in the early 1980s, and she didn't even get specific at that point, Kavanaugh and a friend, both what she typified as stumbling drunk, Ford alleges, corralled her in a bedroom during a gathering of teenagers at a house in Montgomery County. Not a specific house, not a specific address. While his friends watched, she said, Kavanaugh pinned her to a bed on her back and groped her over her clothes, grinding his body against hers and clumsily attempting to pull off her one-piece bathing suit and the clothing that she wore over it. When she tried to scream, she said he put his hand over her mouth. I thought he might inadvertently kill me, said Ford, now a 51-year-old research psychologist in Northern California. Now, that's specifically Palo Alto, by the way. He was trying to attack me and remove my clothing. Ford said that she was able to escape when Kavanaugh's friend and classmate at Georgetown Preparatory School, Mark Judge, jumped on top of them, sending all three tumbling. She said she ran from the room, briefly locked herself in a bathroom, and then fled the house. That was 36 years ago, as I indicated. In 1982, Judge Kavanaugh categorically denied the allegation, then responded again in writing this Monday, the 17th. He said it once, and then he said it again.
Leanne Conway made those statements earlier today. Judge Kavanaugh arrived here at the White House shortly after 10 o'clock. He comes over here all the time, but clearly the circumstances of his visit today are different. I'm told by sources here at the White House that he is in good spirits, and he's just interested in getting all of this cleared up so that they can get on with the confirmation process. Shortly after he arrived here at the White House, Kavanaugh putting out a statement himself saying, quote, "This is a completely false allegation allegation. I have never done anything like what the accuser describes to her or to anyone. Because this never happened, I had no idea who was making this accusation until she identified herself yesterday. I am willing to talk to the Senate Judiciary Committee in any way the committee deems appropriate to refute this false allegation from 36 years ago and defend my integrity. The White House strategy to deal with all of this becoming quite clear now put Kavanaugh back before the Judiciary Committee in some form. Kellyanne Conway also tweeting about that just a short time ago, saying, quote, Judge Kavanaugh is willing to add to his dozens of hours of sworn testimony. He categorically denies the allegations and is ready to defend his honor and integrity. Kellyanne Conway also saying that the accuser, Christine Blasey Ford, should be heard. This is what she said earlier today.
Absolutely. She should not be insulted. She should not be ignored. She should testify under oath, and she should do it on Capitol Hill. But that's up to the Senate Judiciary Committee. They need to decide the forum. Should the vote be delayed? Judge Kavanaugh should also testify as to these 36-year-old allegations.
Last week, the White House sent to the Senate Judiciary Committee a letter that was signed by 65 women who worked with Brett Kavanaugh during his time at the Bush White House. Among other things, that letter says, quote, as former colleagues of Brett's, we know his commitment to equal treatment of women in the workplace and are especially proud of his efforts to encourage and support women lawyers. More than half of Brett's law clerks have been women, and he has worked tirelessly to support them in their legal careers.
Now, in that statement, by the way, more than half of his clerks have been women. We'll get back to that statement as well. Now, if you're a leftist, what do you think you can do with that statement? Think about that just for a moment.
Clear at this moment how all of this, Sandra, is going to unfold. Clearly, the White House would like to get Kavanaugh and Ford before the Judiciary Committee in some form or another as quickly as possible, because that vote is scheduled for Thursday. Talking with someone here in the administration, the form, obviously, of whatever appearance they make would be up to the Senate Judiciary Committee. They're going to leave that to the Senate. The suggestion, though, that an open-ended hearing might turn into something of a circus atmosphere, so either
a circus atmosphere, do you think?
A confidential setting or a very tightly controlled public setting might be something that they would like to see. But
okay, but there's more information to be gleaned from all of this, much of it not revealed by the American media maggots, and some of it already removed by Twitter. And why am I saying this? Because I noticed that yesterday and the day before, one of my own tweets was removed, and I couldn't access its predicating tweet after I retweeted it. I know that sounds convoluted, but what that meant was Twitter was already in the process of censoring what it deemed censorable because it involved Kavanaugh and because it involved Ford. And that's the reason I'm doing the show tonight, to let everyone know how absolutely, massively corrupt all of this is. Now, because I've had this happen to me before, what I did is I took screenshots of many of these tweets, which I found subsequently magically disappeared. But I captured them, and I have them, and I'm going to read some of them, okay? Let's start with this story by TruePundit.com, because here's where the truth and the rubber starts to hit the road. Kavanaugh's accuser's brother, I'm going to dovetail this all together lovingly for you. Kavanaugh's accuser's brother worked for the law firm that paid Fusion GPS for work with a Russian lawyer who set up the Trump Tower meeting. That's just the beginning. Ralph Blasey III, Christine Ford's brother, was formerly employed at the D.C. offices of Baker & Hostetler, LLP. That's the same firm that made payments over $500,000 to Fusion GPS. Ralph Blasey III left Baker & Hostetler, LLP in 2004. Still, it's just another rather odd twist to the case of the accuser of Brett Kavanaugh. First, it was revealed Ford is a far-left Northern California professor. Then last night or 2 nights ago, it was revealed that Brett Kavanaugh's mother, a Maryland district judge in the 1990s, foreclosure case against Christine Ford's parents. Oh, we're going to get into that too. And now this. Christine Ford's brother once worked for Baker and Hostetler LLP that paid Fusion GPS $523,651 between March 7, 2016 and October 31, 2016. Even though the payments were made after Blasey III left that LLP, you gotta wonder, and maybe you ought to investigate, his connections with the law firm. He may have no knowledge at all of the payment. Ralph Blasey may have had zero influence with the payment. But did you hear this from the American media maggots? No, you didn't. So you got to remember that there are no left leanings there. None in that family. This is not a continuing familial thread that indicates a pattern of despising all things conservative, to include Judge Brett Kavanaugh. Why, nothing of the sort. Hey, perish that thought, except that, well, there's more. Of course there's more. Let's start with Bill Maher. And I know I missed the bottom of the hour break, and we'll go to the top of the hour break. And we'll continue. Oh, will we ever continue after that? Bill Maher and Stopped Clock. This was back when she was anonymous. And even Bill Maher said this about the anonymity the first time around.
What do you think about this Brett Kavanaugh thing where suddenly, right before he's going to get the vote, and he's an ultimate suck-up and dick, Brett Kavanaugh. Well, he is. And he's only
right because he's not your suck-up. That's why.
There because he's going to, vote with pardoning Trump, basically,
That's
and
right.
letting him off the hook. Okay. But now they're coming at him with this accusation from someone anonymous that he was at a party, which I find hard to believe. In high school.
And drunk.
Drunk. Okay.
Allegedly.
Well, that
Which I find hard to
doesn't
believe.
excuse it. But sexual assault in high school from an anonymous source.
It's really funny because Dave Milner in chat just said, pay some former woman clerk tons of money to lie.
It makes us look bad.
It's not going to stop him. He'll get in.
It's
sad. But
did you hear what he said?
It's not going to stop him.
From an anonymous source. I think it makes us look bad.
It makes us look bad. The Democrats. It makes us look bad.
It's not going to stop him. He'll get in. It's sad, but he will get in.
Yes, he will get in. But I mean, is this something that
we need all to pray for Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Why would I, right out of the box, accuse Ford of being a leftist? Well, maybe there's this article from Breitbart.com. Kavanaugh accusers signed letter fighting Trump border enforcement. Again, there's more. There's more to this than you haven't heard. The woman accusing President Trump's United States Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh of a rape attempt when the two were in high school previously signed a letter fighting Trump's zero-tolerance policy at the U.S.-Mexico border. The American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, an open borders advocacy organization. The letter was written and signed and sent to the Department of Homeland Security, DHS Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen and Attorney General Jeff Sessions in June. Christine Blasey Ford, a psychology professor, signed the ACLU letter as Christine Blasey, Ph.D., psychologist, signing off on statements that accused Trump of using southern border enforcement to traumatize children because, after all, it's all about the children, and claimed the zero-tolerance policy was violating fundamental human rights. Folks, it is, in fact, time for a break. We're going to do that, and we'll be right back after this, continuing with the SHR special report, the Borking of Judge Kavanaugh, right here on the SHR Media Network.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny, on shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday, live and direct on the SHR Media Network, shrmedia.com. Be there.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The Right Guy on SHR Media.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the unpleasant blind guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's no surrender ever, because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
Hey, who's going to take Sean's chair?
I'll run the buttons if you want.
The what?
The slider
the
thingies.
The
Those
what?
things.
We have those?
Yeah, right over there.
Where?
It's on the board. That damn technology.
Fucking technology.
I know. What are we going to call it?
Call what?
The show.
What?
The show.
What show?
The new show, Wednesdays. Every Wednesday on SHRmedia.com. 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Sackheads.
Against tyranny.
There you
go.
Against
tyranny.
I like that. Let's do it.
You guys are porked.
Hello. I'm Tim Hart. I'm the guy BZ hires due to his shameless contract with the SHR Media Network to voice his promos. He'd like me to tell you that the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be found on SHR Media Network, Spreaker, and YouTube every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American media maggots won't. You'll find that the speech is free, but the drinks are not. There, in the saloon, just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ is sending his personal drones of freedom into the wheelhouses and ossicles of lovers of sovereignty and liberty nationally and globally. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, BZ swears that no rights were harmed in the making of this promo.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's the second hour of the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here from the sumptuous and palatial SHR Media Network studio. And tonight, it's all about the SHR special report, the Borking of Judge Kavanaugh. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being involved in the chat room. Thanks for being involved in the visual aspect of it, whether you're on YouTube or Periscope or on Facebook, or just hanging out in the chat room at shrmedia.com or listening in podcast later. Folks, if you would follow us on Twitter at SHR Media Group, like us on Facebook, follow us on Facebook, subscribe, if you would, pretty please, to the SHR Media YouTube channel. And anytime anybody from SHR Media goes on, bing, you'll be in the know about what's happening on SHR Media. The Borking of Judge Kavanaugh. We continue. Does anybody ever listen to any of the very interesting little mini speeches, if you will, of a guy named Terrence Williams? I do. He's sort of a comedian kind of guy. He's a black conservative, and he generally points fun at a lot of things that, he's not quite so politically correct. This time, he asks, hey, am I the only one that doesn't believe this crap about Judge Kavanaugh? I don't know. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm not. Let's listen.
Girl, so you gonna wait 30 years to speak up, huh? And not only that, y'all were in high school, and you claim he assaulted you at a high school party, and you just now speaking up 30 years later? And I find it quite funny that you speaking up now that he is a Supreme Court nominee, but this man been a judge almost half his life. Well, he's been a lawyer, a judge. Why you didn't say nothing 10 years ago, 15 years ago? Who paying you? Is it CNN? I won't tell nobody. Is it the New York Times? Who paying you? Is it Hillary? Obama? I won't tell nobody. You can talk to me.
Of course, you know what's happened. Professor Ford has already lawyered up, okay? Why? You're either correct or you're not. Does Professor Ford somehow envision herself subject to suit, therefore she requires your very own personal mouthpiece? You could just as easily have chosen a friend or a relative to be a spokesperson, if that's what you were looking for. You could just as easily have chosen a friend or a relative to be a spokesperson. Or did you hire your lawyer in order to make another semi-subliminal leftist statement? Because what is it that we know about the mouthpiece that Ford specifically chose? Well, we happen to know two things. And these are two things that, again, you're not going to hear out of the mouths of the American media maggots. The first one, lawyer for Kavanaugh accuser downplayed sexual misconduct allegations against Clinton and Franken. No. Are you kidding? If I had a producer, what you would have heard after I just said that was this. But I don't have a producer, and that's not what you heard. Attorney Deborah Katz made the rounds on Monday on morning television to argue her client's sexual misconduct allegations against Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh should be taken seriously, an appeal accepted even by the White House. But while her client's claims have raised bipartisan concerns about Kavanaugh, Katz, a longtime Democrat donor known for representing sexual harassment accusers, also has a history of downplaying or dismissing accusations made by women against Democrat politicians, including former President Bill Clinton and former Minnesota Senator Al Franken. Imagine that it wasn't trumpeted from the hallowed halls everywhere. That's the kind of person that she is. But while her client's claims have raised bipartisan concerns, Paula Jones' suit is this is what she said. This is what attorney Deborah Katz said. Paula Jones' suit is very, very, very weak. 3 varies, by the way. Katz said on CNN's Talkback Live in March of 1998. So she was a mover and a shaker back in 1998. In a discussion about Jones' claims against Bill Clinton, according to a show transcript, she's alleged one incident that took place in a hotel room that, by her own testimony, lasted 10 to 12 minutes. Wow, that's something in and of itself, but I could go on a tangent. I'm not going to. She suffered no repercussions in the workplace. So I guess that makes Paula Jones, she's absolutely immaterial. Katz, in other media appearances first highlighted by Town Hall, suggested Jones, she didn't have much of a case. Clearly, it's a one-time incident that took place in 10 to 12 minutes. She was not forced to have sex. She left on her own volition. The courts increasingly are finding that's not enough to create a sexually hostile work environment claim, Katz said in 1998, according to a transcript of the CBS Evening News. Oh, now wait. As I am wont to say, does it get better? Maybe. She continued, if a woman came to me with a similar fact pattern that is someone in the company above her prepositioned her or propositioned her, but only once and suffered no tangible job detriment, Katz told the New York Times in 1998, I would probably tell her that, I'm sorry, it's unfair, but you don't have a case. So, 1982, 36 years later, I'm sorry, it's unfair, but you got a great case, baby. Number 2, Kavanaugh accuser's lawyer, says this, it's not her job, meaning the accuser, Ford, it's not Ford's job to corroborate her story. Deborah Katz, the attorney for the woman accusing Brett Kavanaugh of sexual assault, said that it's not her client's job to corroborate her claims. You heard that correctly. I guess maybe it's simply Jones's job to make allegations and then just wait in the wings for the 100-car freeway pileup, which is happening right in front of our faces right now. Then there was this from another story. We find out that Deborah Katz is tied up with George Soros. Again, dovetailing, everything linked together, and that's why I'm going through all of this tonight. You won't hear this otherwise. Just in, Kavanaugh accuser's lawyer connected to Soros's Open Society Foundation. So the plot thickens. Isn't that amazing? There are 2 key people involved with Judge Kavanaugh's accuser who need to be looked at further. Senator Lindsey Graham asked, listen to this, if you pay attention to only a couple of things tonight, this is one of them. There are some others at the end of this, but here's one of them. Senator Graham asked one of the best questions yet about this Kavanaugh thing and the Kavanaugh accuser, and what he said was this. He hones right in on it. Senator Graham said, here's what I want your audience to know. If Miss Ford really did not want to come forward, never intended to come forward, never planned to come forward, why did she pay for a polygraph in August, and why did she hire a lawyer in August if she never intended to do what she's doing? This is also extremely important and very salient. Lindsey Graham asked, and who's paid for it? So Deborah Katz, the attorney for Judge Kavanaugh's accuser, Christine Blasey Ford, Deborah Katz is the vice chair of the Project on Government Oversight, POGO, which has been directly funded by George Soros's Open Society Foundation. She's donated about $24,000 to liberal causes, including MoveOn.org, and had this to say about Trump advisors on Facebook. These people are all miscreants. The term basket of deplorables is far too generous a description for these people who are now senior Trump advisors. So Deborah Katz is a known lawyer who specializes in the representation of whistleblowers. How was it that she was hired months ago, to represent Judge Kavanaugh's accuser? Remember that Senator Feinstein claimed that the anonymous person wanted to stay anonymous. Well, if that's the case, why did this woman secure a lawyer specializing in whistleblower cases months ago? So this is probably the tip of the iceberg with the involvement from the left in trying to stop the Kavanaugh confirmation. And these people, as we well know, they're going to stop at nothing to get what they want. And then there's this. The hard left group Indivisible was founded to defeat the Trump agenda, elect progressive leaders, and realize bold progressive policies. They have a section on their website dedicated just to stopping Judge Kavanaugh. Christine Blasey was active in the Silicon Valley chapter of that. Just thought I'd tell you. Nobody else is going to tell you. This reeks, okay? This does not pass the smell test. It's precisely what Senate Democrats did to Clarence Thomas in 1991. But here's what's going to happen. There's going to be new hearings starting on Monday the 24th. The NewYorkTimes.com said, hearing set for Monday to hear Kavanaugh and his accuser. The chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, under mounting pressure from senators of his own party, is going to call President Trump's nominee, Judge Brett Kavanaugh, and the woman who has accused him of sexual assault before the committee on Monday, the 24th, for extraordinary public hearings just weeks before the midterm elections. But as of Tuesday, though, there's new information. Mark Judge says he's not coming to testify. The Washington Times wrote, Mark Judge, the other man in the room, according to Kavanaugh's accuser, tells senators he's not going to testify. Mark Judge, a friend of Brett Kavanaugh's from high school, told seniors Tuesday that he doesn't recall anything, that's today, by the way, that he doesn't recall anything like the attempted sexual assault a woman claims she suffered at the hands of Judge Kavanaugh and that Mr. Judge apparently witnessed. Mr. Judge, through his lawyer, also said he does not want to speak publicly about it, effectively shooting down Democrats' calls that he testify next week as part of a freewheeling hearing to examine Christine Blasey Ford's allegations about a decades-old attempted assault. I have no memory of this alleged incident, Mr. Judge said in a statement his lawyer provided to the Judiciary Committee. Brett Kavanaugh and I were friends in high school, but I do not recall the party described in Dr. Ford's letter. More to the point, I never saw Brett act in the manner Dr. Ford describes. And so, like I said, but wait, there's more. And if that weren't enough, now there's doubt about the accuser. This is from Reuters.com. I got this today, just before I got here, probably about 4 hours before I got here. This is the headline. Doubts arise over whether Trump court nominee's accuser will testify. Washington, Reuters. A woman who has accused President Donald Trump's Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh of sexual assault decades ago has not yet agreed to testify at a U.S. Senate hearing set for next Monday, raising questions about whether the high-stakes public showdown is even going to take place. Christine Blasey Ford, a university professor in California whose allegations have put Kavanaugh's once-safe nomination in jeopardy, has not responded to attempts by the Republican-led Senate Judiciary Committee to contact her about appearing at the hearing, Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley said today on Tuesday. Yet, wait a minute, despite the accuser, wait, what? Didn't Ford say that she is going to testify? Now, Deborah Katz, a lawyer representing Ford, said in television interviews on Monday that the professor would be willing to testify and called the alleged incident attempted rape. Katz did not respond to Reuters' requests for comments. Imagine that. Okay, so envision this. Trust me. If you thought day one of the Kavanaugh hearing was explosive like kabuki theater, with this Monday shindig, you haven't seen anything yet. This coming Monday, the 24th, is going to be every bit the shit show and then some. If you thought there was posturing, you haven't seen posturing. If you thought there was acting and umbrage, oh man, Sturm und Drang, you haven't seen acting, umbrage, and Sturm und Drang. More about this at the conclusion, though, when I wrap this up. How odd is it, though, that up to this point, Kavanaugh has somehow managed to pass 6 prior hearings and FBI background checks with a flawless record? Now, that said, here is the Democrat game plan. First, tar and feather Judge Kavanaugh and hang the dead cat of Professor Ford around his neck. Now, once you've accomplished that, because he's a current sitting D.C. court judge, guess what? Democrats are going to move to have him impeached from that judgeship. Mark my words. Now, this is an interesting note from Axios.com, because I go everywhere for this stuff, for this show. Scoop. GOP plans to play hardball on Kavanaugh. Strategist advising Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh planned to use aggressive tactics this week in response to the public accusation of a stumbling drunk sexual assault in high school that instantly imperiled his confirmation, top sources tell Jonathan Swan. A source close to the process said that if Democrats sink Kavanaugh, we'll just bring in someone more conservative. Now, in terms of this process, here's the people that you need to watch. Who can sink this? And would you be shocked? I hope you're sitting down. Because these three senators that I'm about to mention are all Republicans. They have the power to sink Kavanaugh. Susan Collins of Maine. She's probably one of the most crucial, if not the crucial, swing vote in all of this. She's told CNN that she was like surprised about the allegation. But, you know, she said, I don't know enough to create the judgment at this point. Then there's Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. The other critical vote said that she might consider a delay. And then there's Jeff Flake, perfectly and aptly named, who followed in the footsteps of John McCain, who should have changed his R to a D, as I've said, and been done with it. And then, I forgot, there's four. There's another one, Bob Corker of Tennessee. His vote also is critical. So there's four senators that need to get in line. But the big question you have to ask is, these are all Republicans. And are they going to get in line? To confirm someone who really is an originalist, someone who believes in the Constitution, and for God's sakes, we have doubt about Republicans, and it's all because of President Trump. If it were somebody else in there, some squish like a Bush or a Romney, this wouldn't be an issue. Bush, Romney, squishes. Trump is no squish. That's why it's an issue. And just like John McCain, Jeff Flake, he's a lame duck. He should have just changed his R to a D as well. And the same with Collins and Murkowski. Now, I told you about the series of tweets that saw the light of day on Monday the 17th. And some of them were subsequently removed by Twitter, but I have screenshots of them. And one of them was by somebody I follow that was on the show here, Kurt Schlichter. He said, I pointed out it appears Kavanaugh's mother was the judge in a home foreclosure proceeding against the accuser's parents. The accuser didn't mention that. A liberal is mad that you know that fact. Why is that? Then here's another one. Pink Lady for Trump said, and once I read this, I went over and I found, wow, that's true. Hey, Andy Wood is in chat. Welcome to Andy. Good to see you there. Pink Lady for Trump said, Christine Ford scrubbed her entire social platform. Amazing. I wonder why that would be. Then there were all sorts of tweets about the Maryland judiciary case, and people are providing stats and pictures and case numbers, 156006V, and you click Get Case, and all sorts of tweets told people all about that. And in 1996, basically, Kavanaugh's mom was the judge in a home foreclosure action against Ford's parents. Now you see how the animus starts to make sense? Now what you do is you add Donald Trump as president, and then you stir to taste. The brother Ralph did work for the law firm that was affiliated with Fusion GPS. Imagine that. Now, Mark Pantano wrote, Democrats wanted to destroy Brett Kavanaugh over a highly dubious allegation about him as a teenager made at the last minute by a left-wing radical partisan. Meanwhile, Democrats are in love with Beto O'Rourke in Texas, who was actually arrested for robbery and DUI when he was in his 20s. Imagine that. I guess high school drunken hijinks are much more serious than robbery and drunk driving. Everybody listening to the sound of my voice, get with it, okay? But about Dianne Feinstein, I told you I had another observation about this. Dianne Feinstein is now insufficiently left for the left. She has to continue to prove that she's valid in 2018's Democrat world. she's getting tremendous pushback from California Democrats who decided they're going to back Kevin De Leon instead of her for a Senate seat. So in order to look relevant, Feinstein, I think, she thinks she's forced to provide the information despite maybe her first inclination was just to hold it, or, as was alleged earlier by Janine Pirro, that she didn't believe it. But here's what Dianne Feinstein, I'm sure, was thinking. Because she wants her seat, and she doesn't want to be sunk by Kevin De Leon. She's thinking, okay, what's going to happen to me if it's found that I had the means in my hand to squish Kavanaugh, and I didn't use it? Then I found this, also very interesting, a tweet from a basket of Covfeef, if you remember that meme about a year ago. And she was replying to Mike Cernovich. It says, I also found this allegation about the holier-than-thou Christine Blasey Ford. Christine Blasey Ford admitted that she was an alcoholic back then and regretted being so easy. She told her best friend she had 64 sexual partners between 11th grade through college. She's also a liberal activist who wrote on her Facebook in 16, Scalia types must be banned from law. Okay, so she apparently enjoyed drinking and swiving. Well, so do boys. It comes at a cost for both of them. Now, remember I said that there were dockets and there was evidence of this foreclosure, and it's all over there. I mean, you can see these things blown up like crazy. But I found another article at WayneDupree.com, and it says Kavanaugh's mother presided over the case that included the accuser's parents. Judge Brett Kavanaugh's mother, Martha, seems to have presided over his accuser's parents' court case back in 1996. You can go on the internet and you can see all sorts of enlarged public file folders about this. But it seems that Blasey's parents didn't fare all that well in the judgment, and if the hearings are due to this late accusation or allegation, this information should also be entered into evidence as a motive, amongst others, for revenge. Because Ralph and Paula Blasey, Christine Blasey Ford's parents, look like they lost some property due to debt in Kavanaugh's court. And then, let's see, PacificPundit.com. And also, thanks, Mike, for pointing this out to me. I already knew about it, but thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Christine Blasey Ford motive, revenge. Kavanaugh's mother judge against parents in a foreclosure case in 1996, just as I indicated. There's stories all over the internet about this. So I'm going to weigh in a little bit, and then we're going to go to a break at the bottom of the hour. And we will continue with this because it's not done. So I was an FTO, which is a field training officer for a major California department. And I looked to identify, that was my job back then when I was a training officer. My job was to look for and try to identify trends and patterns so that I could reward positive patterns and attempt to correct negative trends and patterns. And we generally know that past performance is basically the best predictor of future performance or the lack thereof. So you have to identify behavior patterns, and they have to be identified, and they frequently are, just as patterns and trends, and this is also important, patterns and trends went towards the motivation, the base motivation of FBI agents Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, including their political predilections. Okay, these patterns and trends go to the political motivations and predilections of Christine Blasey Ford as well. Women can be every bit as treacherous, as plotting, as conniving, and untruthful as men. There's your real equality. So stop, okay? A moment about the truth. There was a buried secret in the department I once worked for regarding sex assault rape investigators. No one was to speak of it at all because it was the department's dirty little secret and its dirty little lie. And that was, at the time, now I can't speak for trends and patterns now, but I really do suspect that they have not predominantly changed due to human behavior. The trend and pattern was that roughly 40% to 50% of the rape reports coming through the Bureau were later proven to be false. Women would falsify reports due to fear, venality, spite, vengeance, drunkenness, and a whole host of other reasons. And I'm sure you can imagine why. That's how and why I continued on the path as a detective and a peace officer to ensure that the accused were innocent until proven guilty. I needed proof. I required evidence. I was driven by facts and evidence. I had to go where the facts led me. If I couldn't prove it, I couldn't file it. And I couldn't request a warrant, or I couldn't make a fresh arrest. It was very simple. Now, when we come back, I'm going to have a little bit of a quote, tete-a-tete from Judge Andrew Napolitano. And you're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin, which is me, right here, live and direct on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. And thanks for listening. We'll be right back post this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Power brokers use corrupt politicians, deceptive Islam, and lies from establishment media to turn the once shining city on a hill into the city of the blind. What do the elites fear? One man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me at SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Spreaker, iTunes, and YouTube for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
Hello, I'm Tim Hart. I'm the guy BZ hires due to his shameless contract with the SHR Media Network to voice his promos. He'd like me to tell you that the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be found on SHR Media Network, Spreaker, and YouTube every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American media maggots won't. You'll find that the speech is free, but the drinks are not. There, in the saloon, just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ is sending his personal drones of freedom into the wheelhouses and ossicles of lovers of sovereignty and liberty nationally and globally. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, BZ swears that no rights were harmed in the making of this promo.
This is Jersey Joe, host of the Reverb Common Sense, and you're listening to shrmedia.com.
And so we're continuing with our SHR Media special report tonight, the Borking of Judge Kavanaugh. And I told you we're going to have a cut now from Judge Andrew Napolitano. Let's see what he's thinking about Judge Kavanaugh's nomination.
News that came across, so we've been hearing about for the last few days, but now we have a name behind the accusation. Let's bring in Judge Andrew Napolitano, Fox News senior judicial analyst, on the phone last night after Christine Blasey Ford came forward as the professor, the woman, the accuser behind Brett Kavanaugh, who claims in high school she was assaulted by Brett Kavanaugh and a classmate. So we go back to the 1980s for this. We had an anonymous accuser. Dianne Feinstein found out about this in July. Then we hear about it a couple of days ago, and now we have a name. What does it mean for his nomination?
So Steve Hilton, they asked me last night, how does law enforcement view this? Law enforcement would view it very, very skeptically because of the passage of time.
35 years.
35 years. So all statutes of
the statute of limitations are gone. They're done. They're over with.
Limitations, civil and criminal.
Even in California. Yes, even in California.
Both statutes of limitations have obviously expired. Memories fade. Her ability to recall details obviously will be diminished with the passage of time. But because we are in this era, the post-Robert Bork, post-Clarence Thomas era of Supreme Court hearings before the Judiciary Committee.
And Me Too.
Yes, and we're in the Me Too era. I think that this Dr. Ford will be asked to testify, and Judge Kavanaugh will be asked to testify, and we're going to see another version of the Clarence Thomas, Anita Hill hearings right before our eyes sometime in the next few weeks, maybe as soon as Thursday. So the Senate Judiciary Committee will have to decide, is she credible? Is Judge Kavanaugh's denial credible? Is this some sort of a political stunt, some sort of a political Hail Mary from the left? Or did this actually happen as she says it did? Did she have a repressed memory, as she says she has, until she was in counseling with her husband in 2012? Now, the counseling with her husband in 2012 is corroborated by the psychiatrist or psychologist with whom she and her husband were having the counseling.
Although that psychiatrist wrote in her notes that there were 4 men there present, the woman says, actually, that's not true. There were 4 people at the party. There were only 2 in the room with me. The friend that was in the room, the friend that she says jumped on top.
Wait a minute, a drunken brawl at a party and there's 4 people at a party? Are you kidding me? That ain't no high school party.
Of them.
He's denied it emphatically.
Yeah, he's denying it. This
is what happens when events like this are brought to the fore 35 years later. Memories are different, and
36 years, sir.
People remember, memories fade, and people remember things differently. 2 people seeing the same thing at the same time will recall it differently the next day, much less 35 years later.
According to the Washington Post, which broke this story yesterday afternoon with the name, this woman, Christine Blasey Ford, contacted them through a tip line and told her story, and then wanted to come out because Kavanaugh had been named to the short list. And then she contacted her Democratic congresswoman, and then she sent a letter to Dianne.
That would be, oh, wait, here we go.
And Feinstein, who, knew this story back in July. And so people are going, well...
That's important. Feinstein was aware of this back in July.
Why?
Remember that.
Wouldn't she tell people about the story back in July?
There's 2 arguments here. One is, as I said, this is a Democratic Party, capital D, left-wing Hail Mary effort to block an otherwise qualified nominee who the Democrats fear will interfere with Roe versus Wade. The other is Senator Feinstein did the right thing. She did not reveal the existence of this because Dr. Ford didn't want it revealed until...
Wanted her privacy.
Correct. Until something happened in the past week or so. I think it was a website somehow.
Or did she? Again, why did she take a polygraph in August? Again, why did she lawyer up in August?
Now got a hold of this.
If she wanted her anonymity.
And revealed it, and then... Senator Feinstein...
Yeah, reporters started knocking on her door.
Right. Senator Feinstein decided, I got to show this to Senator Grassley, and I got to show this to other members of the committee. The committee's stamp of approval is not required in order for the Kavanaugh nomination to go to the floor. So if Senator Graham and Senator Flake who have expressed a wish to hear more about this before the vote on Thursday were to vote against the nominee because they are undecided over this latest allegation, that would not prevent the full Senate from taking.
So it doesn't have to be passed by the committee.
Correct.
It could go just directly to the full
Correct.
Senate.
Unlike a lot of legislation, which has to have the imprimatur of a committee, a nomination to the Supreme Court does not.
We have 51-49, right?
That's a problem.
51-49. So if you lose, even if it gets out of committee, even though it loses in committee, if Jeff Flake says no, Lisa and Senator Collins says, I'm going to wait to see what's going on here. Murkowski was going to wait to see what's going to go on here. Lindsey Graham's going to wait to see. Bob Corker's going to wait to see. Then it looks like they don't have the votes.
Then Mitch McConnell has to go to the Democrats, who are running for re-election in states that the president carried handily in 2016, and ask them if they want to do it. But the more Republicans that start to say no, the more difficult that job will, or maybe, right, Brian, the more difficult that job will be for Mitch McConnell.
And I have identified who they are, except for this. I don't think Lindsey Graham is in that aforementioned column anymore. So, yeah, Me Too has its place, but that doesn't mean that due process is dismissed because, as I found in 4 decades of law enforcement, you can never go wrong by adhering to the foundational documents of the nation. Allegations are just that. So, absent any kind of corroboration, they can and should die an ugly death. There's a guy named Scott Moorfield who happened to nail it in an article, and he said, still, even the most skeptical amongst us might acknowledge that something may have happened that evening in 1982. Ford supposedly passed a polygraph test. So if those can be trusted, we know at least she believes it. Remember that line, she believes it. But what exactly? An attempted rape? A misplaced grope, a clumsy, unwanted kiss, a drunken makeout session that led to nothing, all of it's up in the air. And when you're looking 36 years in the mirror, especially if you're a liberal knowing that you could score a much-needed goal for the resistance, it can pretty much become whatever you need it to be. Imagine that. Okay, so here it is. This is BZ's heresy, and this is how I'm going to wrap up this special report. Should women inherently be believed when allegations are made? No. Of course not. They're no better than men. Should they be free to make claims and allegations? Yeah, they can, as should men. Because sexual harassment isn't a one-way street anymore. Power corrupts on both sides of the sexual aisle. I've had it occur to me. That's a story for another day. But it occurred to me when I was in detectives from a female supervisor. So what we have, allegedly and unconfirmed, is a teenager who got drunk and allegedly attempted to have sex with a girl. Of course, you never got drunk in high school, right? Okay, well, sorry to burst any bubbles, but that's pretty much any teenage boy's life, particularly in the decade since the 1960s, when permissiveness and casual hookups, they became a lifestyle. BZ got more ass in his 60s and early 70s than the women's bathroom at a channeling convention back in those years. However, should there be consequences for false reports of crimes? Oh, hell yes. Because those false reports, they waste valuable investigative time, they take time away from true investigations, and they diminish the veracity and credulity of real crimes against women who are actual victims. And I have to say this, I don't trust psychotherapy. I don't trust psychologists. The human mind is subject to a myriad of influences. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I tell you, and I can beat a polygraph. And I can beat a CVSA. 'Cause I know how. It's not that difficult. I've done it. I can also beat the MMPI. Hey, I'm here today. I did it. I've taken Rorschach tests. Hell, listen, I'll tell you something that I've never told you before. I'm colorblind. And I beat the color blindness test for my department. 'Cause a friend gave me the numbers. Imagine that. I still worked just fine. So, one teensy-weensy little question. Democrats somehow managed to forgive Teddy Kennedy for killing Mary Jo Kopechne in July of 1969. In fact, her killer, Ted Kennedy, later became the much venerated Lion of the Senate, perhaps for his absolutely monumental and staggering drinking binges, if nothing else. But they somehow find it not within their grasp or their hearts to forgive Brett Kavanaugh for apparently trying to get some high school tit action. This just came in. By the way, Jim Hoft from Gateway Pundit tweeted. Are you ready for this? As a matter of fact, I think there's more. Let me update this. This just came in on Tuesday. There are two very important stories that just came in on Tuesday. Dianne Feinstein herself is doubting the credulity of Professor Ford. This is from Mediaite.com, and here's the headline. Dianne Feinstein, this was today. Well, if you're on the right coast, the East Coast, it's tomorrow. But from today, meaning Tuesday, this is the headline. Dianne Feinstein on Kavanaugh allegation. I can't say everything is truthful. What? Senator Dianne Feinstein, who held from public view the letter from Christine Blasey Ford detailing an accusation against Donald Trump SCOTUS nominee Brett Kavanaugh, told reporters today she cannot say that everything is truthful. Speaking to Fox News reporters, Feinstein said, and this is a quote, "No one called her or called her lawyer. My understanding is she got emails. I have no say. I'm the lead Democrat, so this is all up to the Republican side, because why would we ever want to help the Republicans? Huh?" She said, I can't say everything's truthful. I don't know. Didn't hear that in the mainstream media, did you? By the way, I also came across this. This is from Jim Hoft from Gateway Pundit, and he sent this out in a tweet. Listen carefully. Breaking. According to sources, Dianne Feinstein's reluctance to mention the Kavanaugh accuser's letter during confirmation session is because the accuser, Ford, sent a similar letter directed at Judge Gorsuch last year. The whereabouts of the earlier letter remain a mystery developing. But wait, there's more again today. Now the accuser, Ford, has said that she's not going to testify on Monday. She's not going to be here. We know that Judge already said he's not going to be here. Mark Judge said he's not going to be there. He's not going to testify. Now the accuser herself is saying she's not going to be there in the Senate Judiciary Committee on Monday the 24th until the FBI investigates the matter. But wait, there's more. This was on the Tucker Carlson Tonight Show just before I got here. The FBI, Tucker Carlson got in touch, or his producers got in touch with the FBI and said that because these are not federal crimes, the FBI is not going to investigate these allegations from Ford. With this caveat, unless the White House demands that they do it. So it would appear that Monday is going to be a no-show. It'll be interesting to see if Thursday anything gets done at all, whether they go back into session, continue the hearings, whether they go ahead and take a vote. But now the original person who said that, yes, I am willing to be there, Professor Ford, I am willing to be there, and I'm going to testify. Kavanaugh said, hey, tell me the time and the place to show up. I'll be there. Now the accuser is saying, no, I'm not going to be there until there's an FBI investigation. And the FBI is saying there's no investigation and we're not going to conduct it because it's not a federal crime. True. Absolutely true. Now what do? Well, I think Dave Milner in chat has 5 words that sum it up very nicely. And that's this. Take the fucking vote already. Can't say that I disagree. I completely agree with that. So both sides of the aisle are well and truly hosed. They got hosed, the Democrats got hosed by Ford, and potentially the FBI just hosed the Republicans and put it back on their laps. And you got to do the politics. What happens when the White House says we're not going to send a demand that the FBI investigate this because it's not a federal crime? It's all political. And it's all because of Donald John Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head. Everything about this is political. And it's kind of like the gift that just keeps on giving. And it will keep on giving. But before we go away, I told you I'd have this. And so I want to do a couple of these.
It's time for happy stories and good times.
Here's one. This is from Florida. Have you ever noticed that at least 70 to 75 or greater percentile of crap that occurs in the United States that's weird-assed occurs in Florida, including a lot of these stories as well? Here's one from Florida. Father kills alleged Florida carjacker driving away with daughter. When an alleged Florida carjacker tried to steal a man's car with his daughter inside, the father used his legally concealed handgun to save her life. A father shot and killed a Florida carjacker who allegedly attempted to steal a car with his 5-year-old daughter inside. According to the Palm Beach Post, police responded to 10th Street and Greenbrier Drive a little before 6 p.m. Friday. This area is just a little north of the Park Avenue Strip. The unidentified father told police he left his car running to quickly pick up his son from a barber. It was then that Terrence Wilson Jr. allegedly tried to drive away in the car with the young 5-year-old girl inside. Police said the father yelled for Wilson to stop before firing his legally concealed handgun. According to police, after firing, the father immediately opened the passenger door, checked for his daughter's safety, and he also steered the car to arrest. The Palm Beach County Sheriff's Department released a statement stating the father will not be charged in the incident as the deceased was attempting to drive away. The victim, in fear of his daughter's safety, discharged his firearm and struck the male. And that is definitely a happy story. Here's another happy story. I got 5 more minutes before the end of the show. This is from the Washington Times. A needed pause. Trump administration caps refugee admissions at a record low 30,000. Now, if I had applause right now as a sound effect, that's exactly what you'd be hearing. The Trump administration said it will admit no more than 30,000 refugees next year, the lowest cap in history, making good on a presidential promise again. That's my emphasis. And enraging immigrant rights activists who said the U.S. is shirking its global duty. I have an immediate response to that. Fuck its global duty. The U.S. is a sovereign nation. And that's what we respect about Trump. The U.S. first. Period. End of statement. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo cast the level 1/3 lower than the 2018 ceiling as a needed pause while the country gains a handle on security risks and deals with some 800,000 people already in the U.S. with pending asylum cases. The ultimate goal is the best possible care and safety of these people in need, and our approach is designed to achieve this noble objective. Duh. Common sense, facts, and evidence. The 30,000 level is a ceiling, and the actual number could go even lower. Indeed, this year's cap is 45,000, but with just weeks to go before the end of the fiscal year, the government is on pace to accept less than half that number. And now you see why that's a happy story. This is going to be my final happy story because Schadenfreude. I love that word, and it's so applicable to a whole host of stuff. I love it. This is from Fox News. Inside Edition crew gets robbed while reporting on San Francisco Bay Area crime. An Inside Edition crew who baited smash-and-grab thieves in California's San Francisco Bay Area were the victims of a true robbery, resulting in the loss of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. Because what's in a car that Inside Edition is doing stories? That would be really expensive video and audio equipment. Imagine that. In an effort to report on rampant robberies in the area, Inside Edition employees filmed themselves planting GPS trackers inside items that were placed in a car parked in an area well known for theft. The trackers were placed inside a $250 speaker and a purse just before reporter Lisa Guerrero explains that for their last trick, they also placed video cameras throughout the car in the events the products get stolen. But wait, there's more. Sure enough, two people were soon spotted robbing the vehicle. A man was seen in the segment smashing open the car's back window, pulling out the handbag, and throwing it to a woman sitting nearby before removing the speaker. According to a man whose surveillance footage caught the incident, he said it lasted about 20 seconds. The Inside Edition crew then tracked down the speaker, confronted the duo as they walked into a train station. While the man tries to shy away from the camera, and at one point even pushing the camera down, the reporter says 5 million people are going to see you steal that. Refusing to give it back, the man says he's going to call his mother. He's going to call his mother and offer Guerrero encourages. Inside Edition said the man eventually left the speaker, and they later moved to track the stolen purse, which was found in a garbage can. But this is the best point right here. While the crew was interviewing the man captured on camera in the initial theft, their actual crew car was broken into via the smash-and-grab method, leaving thousands and thousands of dollars worth of equipment stolen. Now, according to the San Francisco Chronicle, more than 31,000 people reported smash-and-grab robberies in San Francisco in 2017 alone. Imagine that.
Monsieur! It's unlocked!
Well. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show right here, live and direct on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP, on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. And promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, and of course by the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And by Pratt & Whitney Engines Thrust, you can trust. Tiaras are, of course, by My Little Pony. Hey, thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I shall be consorting in less than an hour. Thank you for listening tonight. Thank you for being in chat. Thanks for being in the podcast, listening in the podcast. Thanks for being in the YouTube chat, the SHR Media chat room at shrmedia.com. I appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time out of your busy day and your busy night to do this. Tomorrow night, Sackheads Against Tyranny. It's a real chat show, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. Be here. Aloha. God bless. Take care. Be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep. night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night.
Good night, Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Good night, and good luck.